Oh,
Hello.
thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Craig Hewitt, the founder of Castos, here with Jonathan Reid from Reidentify. Jonathan, how's it going?
It's going amazing. Thank you so much for putting this on, Craig. Really happy to be
here. Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you all for those of you kind of joining in live. Thank you for joining us. If you are joining in live, drop in the chat where you're kind of calling in from, where you're attending from. I see Alexander from St. Louis. Awesome. So the whole kind of topic of today's discussion is going to be about video, and specifically short form video. So Jonathan, I'll let him introduce himself in a minute, but is like an expert, right, on short form video. I'll introduce and tell a bit of myself first. So I'm Craig Hewitt. I'm the founder and CEO of Castos. Castos is a podcast hosting and analytics platform. So we are the kind of home base for podcasts, and that's how they get distributed out to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also have a professional services arm called Castos Productions, where we do kind of end-to-end done-for-you podcast editing production for about 80 customers right now. And I think one thing that's interesting that we were talking about before we started recording here is we are learning a lot about short-form video as we're beginning to offer it as a service to our customers. Jonathan, it's all that you do all day, every day. So like I have a lot of questions. We're learning. I think you all are learning as well, because it's really a pretty new thing. But I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of tell a bit about your company and kind of what y'all do, and we can go from there.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Greg. For me and us, Reidentify, essentially what we are is a personal branding and podcasting agency. So we actually help. It's changed a little bit since I last spoke to you. So we actually help people with their personal brands and their podcasts, and we do that through the use of automations and through the use of short form content, which is why we're here speaking today. When it came to actually starting this company, it actually started as a marketing agency. I won't take too long on my whole life story, but it started as a marketing agency initially, right? I was like, okay, cool. I want to help people. I know how to market, know how to advertise. Okay, let me just start a marketing agency, right? And I already worked in previous digital marketing roles as well, so it just made sense. And then I started it up, and it was going really well. Working with a lot of different clients. And I realized I like startups, to work with startups. And of course, myself, I'm an entrepreneur as well, but we'll get to that later. I looked at this. I said, okay, cool. I'm liking this business. And I'm also liking what I'm doing on the side, which is a podcast. It's called Purpose Led. So we talk about personal development and mindset and all those kind of things as well. We do events as well. We actually spoke at a university, University of Leicester in London last week. And then we also spoke at Imperial College London, which was another university in London, literally on Saturday too. So yeah, a lot's going on over there, but there was a lot happening at the same time as my marketing agency growing. So I said, okay, is there a way for me to systematize this and to get some automations working so that the podcast can kind of be automated whilst I focus on growing my business and they can grow simultaneously? And I said, okay, cool. If I do that there, Okay. I actually came up with a system. I came up with a system of how we can actually automate, similar to what you guys do, automate the whole podcast process from A to Z. And I said, okay, cool. Let me see if anyone else would like this. And then I started passing it out to people, passing the idea out to people saying, would this be of value to you? People said, yeah, okay, cool. Makes sense. And then we started using short form content to actually grow our podcast. And we started introducing that to the clients as well. And then it just became there was just a big synergy between, of course, us, short form content, and the clients. Everybody loved it because we're putting it out onto the relevant platforms where the audience was, which we'll get to. And then we're getting a lot of great return instead in terms of views, in terms of engagement, in terms of just interest and general interest for the brands that we were doing it for. But I guess that's just a little bit about Reidentify what we do and my story as well.
Awesome. I love it. And I love this is a startup world, right? You and I started talking, I don't know, 6 weeks ago about putting this on. And since we started talking, some of what you do has shifted. And I mean, it's the reality, right? Especially these days, right? Like business is moving so fast, even what we do. And I'll give some insights to that. When you and I started talking, we didn't offer the video service or short form at all. And now it is a part of what we do for Castos Productions. Because, well, like you, we saw the market need, right? Every new person that comes to us and I get on a sales call, they're like, hey, Craig, okay, we're going to do the podcast, but we want to do video to put on YouTube. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We do that. And they're like, hey, what about like all these short clips and TikTok and stuff like that? And I'm like, how hard can it be? that's the entrepreneur. How hard can it be? Yeah, sure, let's do it. And we're learning a lot. And so I think that I think we don't need to talk about like the benefits of short form content, unless, I guess, do you think that there are benefits that are not obvious to a lot of people? And I guess obvious to me means like it's a TikTok and YouTube Shorts, I guess, or Instagram are like the platforms that we would promote to typically. And it's a marketing channel to grow your audience outside of your existing kind of sphere. But are there benefits that you're seeing customers have that are beyond that? Because to me, that's like the obvious realm.
I think honestly, it's just being front of mind, mind for their clients. And the thing is with short form clips, they're short. You can put out them in abundance and they can always be in front of your ideal customer, in front of your ideal audience. They can always be in front of them because you have so many of them. So I think it's just being front of mind and being that go-to person in your niche. That is where my clients are seeing a big ROI. It's literally just being that person that comes to mind, because of course they're going to come to mind. They see them all the time and they're always speaking about the subject matter that they have authority in. That's what I'd say. That's what I'd say in short form.
Okay, awesome. So next question for me, and again, like this is coming from sales calls, and I'm sure you get it too. Where do I post? How often? And how long should the clips be? So, what do you coach folks on?
What I'd say is there's a few platforms, right? Well, we got quite a few platforms actually now. So everybody's just said, okay, I like what TikTok's doing. Let me do the same thing. So we have TikTok, we have Facebook Reels, actually, is something that not a lot of people are aware of. Facebook Reels is a new thing too. Instagram Reels, and I'll come back to Facebook Reels. Of course, Twitter, but it's not really the mobile optimized way of doing things. And then also we have, what's another one? LinkedIn as well. So there's a few mobile optimized platforms like TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And then there's also the other just normal social media platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn. And sorry, can you repeat the question? I just got completely confused in terms of the actual.
It was a 3-parter, so that's cool. So I just posted in the chat. So first of all, like if y'all have questions, this is we want this to be a two-way thing, right? It's not just Jonathan and I talking. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. And I just put a question in there for everybody. If you're already posting short form content, where are you posting it? And I guess the corollary to that is like, where are you having the most success? So cool. I think we covered the channels there. A follow-up to that for you though would be, is there any downside to like posting everywhere? Because that would be my go-to. I'm like, all right, I'm going to create this. You got this 60-second clip. It's going everywhere. It's going to Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. Like, is there any downside to that? Or is it just like, hey, put it everywhere and like that's a wider net that you're casting?
I'd say the biggest downside I see when people try and get on too many platforms is that they can't keep up with it. They can't be consistent they can't be consistently posting on multiple platforms. For me personally, what I like to do with my podcast is post on TikTok and Instagram, because that's where we know that our audience is. Of course, our audience is on LinkedIn. Of course, they're on Twitter. Of course, they're on Snapchat even. Of course, they're on we do YouTube Shorts as well. Of course, they're on Facebook. But we know the majority of them, or a large concentration of them, are on Instagram and TikTok. So we double down on Instagram and TikTok. You just have to understand where your audience is. Okay, is my audience on these platforms? Cool, they're most likely on all of them. What are they most likely to be on? And also ask your audience, where are you guys? Like, what platforms do you use the most? You can do this in the form of polls. You could do this in the form of, even if you want to do focus groups, if you actually want to get really into it. But we did it in the form of a poll. We put it out on multiple platforms. We said, okay, what platform do you use the most? They said, these platforms, Instagram and TikTok. So we picked Instagram and TikTok. And we see, of course, in the data as well, in the results, okay, people are really loving what we're doing through these platforms. And they're even coming to our events, having only seen our TikTok videos, not even watched the podcast.
That's huge. So let me like practically, so you say, okay, Instagram and TikTok are the channels you focus on. What does that mean? Like, are you creating content to try to like game the algorithms on those platforms versus how you would optimize content for LinkedIn? Are you talking about different things in terms of like your content calendar and selection? Like how are you, what specific things are you doing to optimize for certain platforms?
Honestly, the only way that we really do optimize for other platforms, I think people overcomplicate it. People really do overcomplicate. Okay, so this one will work on TikTok. Okay, so this one will work on Instagram. No. This one will work on YouTube. I think people overcomplicate it. If you have good content will always perform well, no matter what the platform is. it might perform better on different platforms. It might do crazy numbers on Instagram, but then maybe only 1,000, maybe only 100, couple hundred views on TikTok. But it will perform well. It will perform better than your usual content. Just put it out. I think my main thing, Craig, for today is just going to be just put it out there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't put it out there, you'll never know. And people, when they're so caught up in overthinking about, okay, what should I put out? What would make sense on this content or on this platform or that platform? They get stuck. They get stuck in a mud. They're like, I don't know what to do. And then they just have information overload. Someone saying to post there, this other guy saying to post there. I don't know what to do. Just pick your platforms, stick to it, and do it consistently. I think consistency is probably one of the biggest keys as well, because that is when you'll see the hockey stick growth. It's just about the compound effect like we were speaking about before the call.
I'll share a personal story from my end. Like I find all of this to be incredibly intimidating, right? Like I find video and I've probably done 800 podcast episodes. And it's so easy, right? Like I have one later today, just flip the mic on, talk. It's great. Talk about marketing or SaaS or podcasting or whatever. But I find video really hard. This is easier, right? Because you and I are having a conversation and I only have to talk for a couple minutes and then you take it and then I take it back and then we ask a question and that's great. But I find flipping on the camera and talking to the camera for 8 minutes just so hard. Like I find it so hard. And I think that I'll give a tip here, right? Which is turn the camera on and talk and have no expectations. That's what works for me, right? Do it, do your best. Know it's going to be edited and give yourself that grace. And then know that out of that 8 minutes, you might only get 4 minutes. And that's cool. Like I think that even we're not talking about short form content, but just like longer form YouTube, like a 4-minute YouTube video is totally cool, I think. So like, I think that's the biggest barrier that we have as businesses to get everyone on this call and everyone who's interested in this to get on this bandwagon is flipping that damn camera on and getting over themselves. And that's me doing. I've had a podcast for 8 years. I've done a ton of this stuff. I've spoken in person, and this by far is the most terrifying thing: is flipping the camera on and talking to no one else for 10 minutes or whatever. But you just got to do it. And I'm soothing my own emotions here. You just got to do it, right? And then deal with everything in post, right? And like give yourself as good a chance as you can to be successful with that piece of content, and know that you can clean it up afterwards. So that's my pep talk for everybody.
No, I like that. That's really, really useful. And I don't really do solo podcasts, so it's really useful for me to hear that. Because I'm thinking about doing a solo podcast at some point, but I'm always there with someone. I'm always doing it with another host. And I like to bounce off of people. If you could tell, I'm a people person. I love people. So I like to bounce off of people. That's just the way I find it. I like, that's the way I like. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. Okay. So let's talk about a massive form of procrastination. And it is gear and setup, right? Like we talk to so many people on the conventional podcasting side of things. We're like, I want to start a podcast, but like I have this list of 87 questions about, the $10,000 of gear I have to do to get started. And I'm not going to do anything until I get all that gear and I have a professional sound studio in my home office. And I say, that's crazy. Get the $90 mic and get the webcam that comes with your laptop, or buy a $100 webcam and have a couple of lights maybe, and you're good. But I'd love to hear how you approach this concept when you're talking to customers who are like, hey, I want to get started, but I'm not really sure about gear and setup and video and lighting and all this kind of stuff. Like, how do you coach folks to say, like, we're going to get you over this hump to where you can get started with like a minimum viable set of gear to where you can record and be successful and learn, right? And then you're going to iterate and you're going to buy the fancy camera and stuff like that. But like, how do you help people get started? Because I think it's the biggest thing.
First of all, Craig, what I tell them is, take everything you think about podcasting in terms of equipment, in terms of that sound quality and everything, and just take it, open your window and throw it out, because it doesn't apply here when you're starting. It doesn't apply here when you're starting, because you can't be at studio, high professional grade equipment. You can't be there right now. I mean, maybe you could, but then it might not be a great idea because you wouldn't know what to do with the equipment when it gets there. So I would say start playing. Start very, very simply. As you said, get the $100 microphone, get the little set. It doesn't even have to be an XLR cable. It could be a USB mic. I'm not the kind of person that says, oh, it has to be great audio and it has to be HD, it has to be 4K. And if it's not 4K, it's not coming out. No, it can be 720 if you really want it to. My main thing is for it to come out. It's content over quality. I believe in great quality. Don't get me wrong, but it's content. Content is the most important thing. Content is what will make people listen for longer and will actually make people like you and understand you. With podcasting, it's essentially relationship building. All you're doing is having a conversation with someone where it's only you speaking, but then they feel like it's a conversation. They feel like it's a conversation because of the way that you're speaking, like your mannerisms, the fact that they can see you, the fact that it's kind of a conversation's left like 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what I say. That's what I'd say in terms of care. And then just getting the basics. Getting the basics. You don't have to overthink it. What I could do is I can even send you a couple things that I would actually recommend, or a couple pieces of equipment that I would recommend. Then you'd be able to, drop that down below.
Awesome. So, and just for everyone listening, one, on these, webinars or live streams, is this going to be recorded? Yes. Will the recording be available to you? Yes. We'll send a follow-up email afterwards with the link to the recording and assets and information that Jonathan mentioned for us to be able to kind of take the next steps. I'll share my setup just as an example of one data point, right? So this is the Samsung Q2U. It's about $80 on Amazon. I have a boom arm that is about $50 on Amazon, and this little foam cover thing here is about $1. I have these lights that are the Amazon brand, newer. They're like LED panel. Okay. I have one on each side of my monitor. It's the middle of the day here right now, and I have a pretty light office, so I don't have any lights on right now. You can probably tell it's a little lighter on one side than the other, but I think it's okay. And then I just have a Logitech 1080p webcam that sits on top of my monitor. And that's my setup, right? It's not perfect. I know it's not perfect, but that's my setup, and I think it does pretty good. I think the one place I would look to maybe improve in my setup is not using a microphone that's sitting right in front of my face, but using like a shotgun mic or something that can sit off camera. Maybe like next to the microphone or something, or next to the webcam. And I might try to do that. And I'll just give, because we do audio quality stuff all day. The further the microphone gets from your mouth, the lower quality it's probably going to be, especially in an imperfect physical environment like a home office or something. So if folks are thinking about like, hey, I'm going to put the microphone further away so it's out of frame, or I'm going to put it on top of the monitor or next to the camera or something like that, that's cool. But you're going to have to deal with sound qualities, which maybe isn't as important in a video as it is in a podcast because you have the visual element too. But that's my kind of 2-cent rant on like gear and setup. And like all in, I think I'm, $250 for all this stuff.
It's not too bad at all. And even when it comes to mics as well, I would argue, I'm not an arguer, but I would argue that it's actually beneficial to have it in front of you, because when you do that content and you put the short form content out there, people will understand it's not just you talking to a camera. You also have a podcast, because usually when people have a mic in front of their face, there's some sort, when they have a mic in front of their face and they're sitting down, they're most likely a podcaster, right? So that's what I would say in terms of that. But there is a definitely an added benefit of having it off camera. You have just more space to move, but I do think there's that benefit of people understanding straight away this is a podcast.
Yeah. Do you, I think one of the other gear kind of questions is like, hey, can I use a lavalier mic, right? So if I have like a button shirt or a collar shirt or something, I can put a little lavalier mic here. Like, do you all like those? Do they perform well from a sound quality perspective? I know that like clothes rustling against them messes them up, but like, what's your take on lavalier mics?
Personally, I like to use them when it comes to in-person podcasts. So let's say, for example, you're somewhere shooting. For example, one of my podcasting friends, he went out to Dubai recently and he was shooting with some people out there. And then the way that he shoots is he'll have a mic just like you have, and it would just be set up in front of him, and it would be set up in front of the other guy as well, the other lady as well. And then he'll also have a lavalier mic underneath, just to make sure, because if you're flying all the way to Dubai from the UK, you're going to want to make sure that you get that audio correctly recorded. Yeah. So I would only use it really as a backup, not necessarily as the main mic, because I just like the podcast feel personally. And I think it also does come down to personal taste as well. But I like the podcast feel with the mic set up and everything like that. But the lavalier mic would only really be for a backup for me.
Got it. Cool. So we have a question from Alexander in the chat here. It says, we do live streams on YouTube. Is there a way to get that onto our channel's home or video feed rather than just the live tab? And he says, without re-uploading. I don't know the answer. Alexander, sorry. Jonathan, do you know the answer?
Neither. I'm not too sure of the answer. What I would most likely say is to re-upload it. That's what I would do. I'm just like a get it done kind of person. I would just download it, put it back up there.
Yeah. And just as far as like process and tooling, like you can use a platform like this, like Crowdcast. We could have live streamed this to our YouTube channel and Facebook and kind of everywhere else. We didn't, because like going live it's like a big deal, right? Like live is live and you can't edit it and stuff like that. So I think that's like a decision to make. But I think when you're choosing the platform that allows you to go live, make sure it's something that can record, so you can edit it and publish a more kind of polished piece afterwards. So,
oh, and something as well, just off the back of going live, this is something I just thought of. I would actually encourage some podcasters who are in independent niches to actually look into potentially streaming. Because if you have that character for a podcast, for example, you might also have that character or a similar character when it comes to streaming as well. But streaming it's kind of a long journey, just like podcasting is a long journey. However, it can still help you when it comes to podcasting. But I wouldn't recommend that for someone who's already got a lot on their plate. Or maybe if you have spare time, that would be something to look into.
Yeah. Cool. I think in terms of like next steps for folks to take value from this and like start doing it themselves. Let's talk about like how, right? So you record the content. There's a million ways to do that. How do you then transform that 10 minutes that you record into short clips? Both in terms, let's start with creatively, right? Like creatively, how do you think about, okay, I recorded this 10-minute thing. How do we get a couple of really good clips out of that?
So essentially what we'll do is we'll look through. Actually, okay, we'll say, okay, cool. Let me watch this through and see what parts make sense to the actual video and what parts actually stick out to us. So I work with editors, right? So the editors will look through it, and they'll say, okay, I think this part will work. I'll go through it. I'll say, I think this part will work. And then we'll come to an agreement on which ones would actually work with that personal touch. And then what we actually look for is just little keywords. So if they say something which is going to catch someone's attention. So let's say, for example, we're talking about numbers, right? Someone says 1 million. That's the first thing that they say. That's going to catch I don't know about you, Craig, but that's going to catch my attention. If someone says 1 million, okay, 1 million what? And then they'll go on from there, right? But then there always has to be context. There always has to be context in there. So they'll say 1 million ways, or 1 million, I got 1 million from doing this, or I achieved 1 million from doing that. That's going to catch someone's attention, but you have to follow it up with context, and you have to follow it up with content. So context and content are exactly what we look for. What I mean by content, actual valuable content that someone's going to get something from. That is what I always look for when it comes to a podcast clip, because it's great. You putting something out there that's going to go viral, but we've got millions of views on stuff that has gone viral, but hasn't really had a bit of us in it. It's just something that's been said potentially that's gone viral, but it doesn't really represent us. So really, when something like that goes viral, you're not even bringing necessarily the right audience to you. So always have the right kind of content, the content that represents the brand in that short form clip. That's what I say when it comes to the shorter clips. And also with shorter clips too, a little tip is to use a watermark. So watermark what the podcast is, or what the business is called, for example, because when you put it out there, and let's say, for example, someone takes that and they put it on Twitter, you might never know that that's going crazy on Twitter. And someone might tell you a week down the line and it's got all these views, people asking, where's this podcast? But no one knows. So I would say to definitely put a watermark on your short form content.
So you're talking about like putting a graphic kind of down here at the bottom or something with to learn more, or go to castos.com or go to re-identify.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. My question there is, as I'm thinking about creating content, so say my goal, I want to do like a 10-minute long form YouTube video a week. And then, but then I want to make it to where we can pull things out of that for short clips too, right? That I think that's a pretty standard thing for podcasters. Are there, as I'm planning that episode or that video, are there things I should consider? Like, oh, make sure you touch on this. Make sure you make this kind of extravagant claim that could be a good short clip, or do you say just like record the good content and we'll find a way to pull those short clips out?
That is essentially what I say. I say, okay, cool. Just make some quality content, because as I like to say, I just work with people who produce value. So everything they say is going to be, or most things that they say are going to be valuable anyway. So we'll find things in there to take it out. And that also takes the pressure off the client as well. So a lot of the time people think, oh, I have to say this, I have to say that. I have to say that. No. Just speak whatever you want to, just talk about whatever you want to talk about. You're my client for a reason. Like you speak with value, like the things that you say. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, I feel like it needs to be put out there. But if you actually would like to kind of have that thought beforehand, I would actually recommend breaking your clip down into, okay, let's say, for example, one of my clients, for example, she runs this like media broadcasting kind of company where it's complicated. It's very, very niche, actually. It's very, very niche. And then what she did was she created what she called a tips podcast. So she said, okay, these are the top 10 tips for doing X, Y, and Z, right? And then what I did, or what she said was, oh, we can actually just, I guess, take a couple of these tips and then use them as clips. And I said, I like that. I guess we just take some of these tips and use them as clips. So anytime someone says, okay, well, can I kind of preempt these short forms? I say, well, like, all you have to do is include a couple of tips in the video. And for some clients, they'll just have a couple of tips at the end of every video so that we know we got a bank of short form clips at the end of the video. So that's one thing that you guys can implement.
Yeah, no, I like that. The only thing I'll add to that, and I don't, we advocate for this when creating podcast content. And it's a whole nother thing of like, if we're creating podcast content, should it be like video first or content for video first for YouTube or audio first? And we're just kind of adding on content, but that's a whole nother thing. For audio only content, we like to talk about like a 3-act play, right? So you have the intro, you have the outro, and then in the middle, you have 3 different acts, 3 different scenes. And so I think this is a good way for people to think about like, okay, in my 30-minute episode, I could have like 3 10-minute segments. And that's a nice way to think about like, and we're doing that a little bit here, right? We talked about like, gear and setup right now. We're talking about like actually getting the content, and then we'll talk about like promotion at the end. And so I think that for me, breaking that down into smaller pieces is good. And then even within that 10-minute segment, you're going to have a couple of, 60-second, sound bites that you pull out for the actual short clip. So that's just one kind of bit there is like, I think it makes it more palatable to break that down. So you don't have to think about, oh my God, I have to create this 30-minute thing, break it down into smaller pieces, and then just tick off each of the pieces as you go. So I think that's helpful. We have a question in the chat here from Max. Hi, John and Craig. I wanted to start a podcast, but worried about the topics. Cybersecurity. I might speak about. I'm not qualified to talk about. Not enough experience. Would imagine that I could be challenged a lot and feel as if I won't be respected as a podcaster until I'm older and have more experience. 100%. This is the fear of everybody who creates content. Max, you are not alone, and I think to an extent this is a really valid concern. And I'll talk. So I'll talk about my journey. I started a podcast 100% as a one entrepreneur, right? Like I didn't have a business. I never started a successful business. I just wanted to be in this space. And I used the podcast as a way to talk to interesting people who were entrepreneurs already. I had no authority, but I just started an interview-based show where I asked questions. And over time, that's 8 years ago, right? Over time now, I have quite a bit of authority because I asked a lot of questions and got to know people, and along the way learned a lot. And so, Max, I would say, like, I assume you're in the cybersecurity space already, but the way to gain authority for yourself is to kind of borrow some of other people's for a time until you are that authority. And I think this is everyone. Nobody comes out of the womb as an authority in any space, right? But they develop that over time. Yeah. Podcasting, webinars like this, YouTube interviews, I think are a great way to build your authority with other people, I think is maybe what I would say. And that's a way to not have to go from 0 to 1 in a day, but just start. And I think you can be really transparent with folks and say like, hey, this is super interesting to me. I want to be in this space and I want to study these people and what they're doing and gain information and relay it to you all as value. But I don't know everything, and I hope to leverage what other people know to provide a useful show. So I don't know, Jonathan, do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, first of all, Craig, that was amazing. Max, I really do hope that you were taking notes. That was really, really good. You touched on a couple of things I wanted to touch on. I would definitely say authenticity. Definitely authenticity and the angle. So what angle do you actually want to take with this TikTok or with this podcast, for example? Sorry, I always think TikTok when I think short form podcasting. But let's say, for example, what angle you actually want to take with this podcast. You can take it in a way of, okay, look, this is the way I'm looking at the industry. This is how you can see the industry from my perspective, right? And actually document the journey. I would actually say to document the journey. So this is my journey in terms of like getting into the cybersecurity space. This is what I've seen. This is how it looks from my angle. And in that way, you'll see a lot of people will be able to relate to you because they will see themselves in you. And a lot of people who may even be further than you in their careers in cybersecurity might look and say, oh, that was me at one point. It's really interesting to see someone documenting this. And what you'll find as well is that after a couple of years of you doing this, even after a couple of months, you're going to see insane growth in those couple of months. Applying exactly what Craig said, talking to the authorities in the space about this subject, you're going to see insane growth, and your audience is going to see insane growth, and they're going to experience insane growth too, because they'll be following along with the content with you. That was a great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Alexander kind of double clicked on that, right? He said, just be transparent. Don't fake it, right? Don't pretend like you know, because you don't. And everybody can tell that, especially a technical thing like cybersecurity, right? Don't try to pretend like you don't know. Part of the beauty of high fidelity content like podcasting or video is that they literally can see you and they can see that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, or you do right after a while. And I think that's the real beauty of it. So I feel like we talked about like kind of how to create content and how to think about, right? I think that's the important thing is like the framework around how to think about pulling those interesting clips out. Everyone on this call surely wants to know about like gear and not gear, but like software. Like what tools are you using to actually do the work? So Jonathan, like what's your tech stack look like?
So for me and for us actually, so my editors actually I like to separate it. So sometimes I do like to get my hands dirty with my own podcast because there are certain parts where I'm like, okay, I like this. I want to edit this episode, and I'll use Final Cut Pro. I use Final Cut Pro to do it. But my editors, they'll use Premiere Pro, and there's a lot of uses with Premiere Pro. Like there's a lot going on with Premiere Pro. So if you're just starting off and you're, let's say for example, editing your own podcast, I'd recommend Final Cut, especially if you have a Mac, because it's just much easier than going into Premiere Pro or even DaVinci. I don't know why you'd be using DaVinci for this, but if you were using DaVinci Resolve, then I would definitely say to go to Final Cut. Also, what I actually recommend for my clients is Riverside or Squadcast to actually record it virtually. They want to record the podcast virtually. What was the other one that people use? The Script is decent. The Script is decent in terms of recording. However, I've heard that it does crash a lot. Like one of my clients was having a problem the other day with it crashing quite a bit. So I said, okay, cool. We're going to go over to Riverside and use Riverside from that one. Yeah. So those are what I would say in terms of online platforms as well. And a distribution platform that is decent, Anchor. They're actually now Spotify for podcasters. They just changed it up recently. And it's free as well. So that's also another barrier for some people as well in terms of like monthly pricing and such. But Anchor is decent. And I've used quite a few of these distributors. So Megaphone is decent as well. What's the number one? Buzzsprout is good too. I do like Buzzsprout. However, with Anchor, you're actually able to put video podcasts onto Spotify, which a lot of people don't actually know. That's the way that I've always done it. So it's actually been through Anchor. Yeah. So I'd recommend to use Anchor in that way.
Or Castos. You can use Castos as
well. Castos.
No, I think that you need a good platform, right? I think we have an amazing one. I think we have the best one in the industry. I think that Anchor is owned by Spotify. So there is a lot going on there that we just don't have access to as a technology platform. And so there's just no two ways about that. I think that if you want to publish video on Spotify, it has to go through Anchor as of today. That's as far as I know. You can publish video through Castos, but it just can't go to Spotify. So we can go to Apple Podcast and third-party apps that support video. Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to kind of touch on the actual kind of like production and editing process, because I think that's really interesting. Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro, one of them is an Adobe product, or both are Adobe products?
So Premiere is an Adobe product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll add to that. So on our end, we so our Castos Productions team is kind of a full service, and we'll talk about this in a bit. Full service kind of like editing and production service. So we do all the audio, all the video, short clips, show notes, publish it for you. Our team all uses Adobe products. And so Adobe Audition for audio is kind of what we do. But for short clips, we're experimenting with Veed, Veed.io, British company. That is a good, I'll say it's like a Canva for audio and video. So super simple to use. And I think that's that can be good if you're just getting started. Because I will just say using a full-on video tool like Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro is daunting to a lot of people, even techie folks who are kind of in the world. I think that like it's worth considering. I'll say this: it's worth considering having a simple tool just to get started. You can have templates and all this automations to make it a little easier, and then maybe graduate to a more full featured tool. In the end, y'all are doing this every day, all day, and so it makes sense to have a full featured tool. But I think for folks who are looking to get started, don't make it too difficult to where getting used to this tool is the reason you don't get started.
Yeah. And even when thanks for that, Craig. And even when it comes to the short form content as well, I would say the main thing you don't have to make it too fancy. The main thing to remember is the subtitles, because the subtitles are so useful. I heard a stat the other day. I think it is 70% of people actually consume media without even hearing the audio.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it until I actually saw myself doing it. Like I was literally scrolling through, I think it was Instagram, and I wasn't even listening. Like I was just scrolling through it just silently. And the videos that had the subtitles, I realized I was watching them. And then the videos that didn't have the subtitles, I'm like, I can't listen to this because I'm not hearing. Yeah. It's weird. It's really weird, but that's the stat that I heard the other day, which really just stuck with me. So definitely prioritize subtitles, clear subtitles.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about on that very note. Let's talk about like a handful of tips or tricks or hacks that you have to get traction, right? So you see a ton of this, you see what's working and what's not. Like subtitles, number one. Like what else would you add to that list of like, okay, if you're going to get started with short form content, make sure you're doing these things or not doing these other things.
I would say consistency. As I said earlier, it's just consistently uploading, because when it comes to short form content, you don't know what's going to, Craig, you have a lot of years in the game, but trust me, you do not know what's going to pop, what's going to go crazy, what's going to go viral, right? I don't know what's going to go viral. I could have potentially an inkling. I think I've been right maybe twice that something's going to do really well. I think I was right twice, but then usually what will happen is you just post something, you'll leave it. And that's another thing as well. Just post it and leave it. Just post it and leave it. You don't have to continue to look at it. Oh, did I say something wrong? Oh, was this said wrong? No, just post it and go, right? So when you post it and you leave it, sometimes you'll come back and you'll see that it's just gone crazy. It's gone viral. But then a lot of the times, majority of the time, it will just do okay. You might have a couple of comments, but then there'll be those few unicorns that go and do crazy numbers. But it's all down to being consistent, because if you're not thinking that this video is going to do well, you might not put it out there. But because you have to be consistent, you have to put out everything that you have anyway. So the way I like to look at it is that you're getting more lottery tickets. Every time that you post, you're getting another lottery ticket. You get another lottery ticket, another lottery ticket. So the more lottery tickets you have, I don't know if anyone else knows about the law of averages, but you're most likely going to have a higher percentage chance of winning said lottery and getting that viral video, because you have more tickets.
I love it. Okay, cool. So along the lines of like, keep putting it out there and consistency, is there an amount of time or a number of times per week that folks should think about ideally getting their short form content out?
I'd say if you want to experience decent growth, okay, well, it depends on the platform. Are we talking about TikTok? Are we talking about Instagram?
Let's talk about TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Okay. So for TikTok, ideally, if you want to just see okay growth, I'd say to post once a day. If you want to see good growth, I'd say post twice a day. If you want to see really good growth, I'd say post 3 times a day.
Okay.
But the main thing is the aim of the game is to post consistently, a consistent amount over a consistent amount of days. Okay. That's the main thing. Instagram, I would say I wouldn't say to always post reels. I would definitely say to change up the content. So it would be maybe a reel, then a post, then a reel, then a post, then a reel, then a post. That's what I'd say, because it does get, your audience will have seen it. Your audience, technically, if you're going to be making that many posts, your audience would have seen you in the same t-shirt or the same jumper a lot of the time. So they're just going to think, oh, it's just the same clip. Do you see what I'm saying? So I would say definitely kind of stagnate it. So say, okay, cool. So we have a post or a reel, then we have a picture post. A reel, then maybe just a quote, then a reel, then something like that, just to kind of switch up the content. But because TikTok is just video, just post video every day. It's trust me, people just overthink this. Just post video every day and you will see results. And then the same with LinkedIn as well. I would definitely say to stagnate the content. So say, okay, cool. We have a video post, then we have a picture post, then we have a video post, then we have just a text post, and definitely go back to back in that way. But I think there is a little bit more leniency when it comes to LinkedIn because you do have a little bit more space to move around. If you wanted to do just video posts, it's okay. But Instagram, because there's the feed, I would definitely say one after the other. Okay. That's what I'd recommend.
And how long would you recommend each clip be?
Sub 60 seconds. Sub 60 seconds.
Way. Okay.
And definitely. And,
I mean, coming from a guy who, when I started, every podcast episode was an hour. You know, I'm 10% of that now. It's just crazy, but or less than that. But yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
A lot less. It's not the ideal for podcasters, I guess, when they start hearing about it, but definitely under 60 seconds. Primarily because the platforms actually favor it. And the way that the TikTok algorithm works, and I'm assuming the Instagram Reels algorithm, the YouTube Shorts algorithm, actually, I know that they work as well because they kind of work with a similar algorithm to TikTok, is amount of video completed. So it's not about like watch time, for example. It's just about, it basically is watch time, right? It's just how much of the video have you completed? And TikTok will give you this metric of like the average person has watched 120% of this video, right? So they've watched it one time and a little bit more, and most people have watched it a couple times, right?
Yeah.
So the shorter you make your video, the more likely you will get traction on it. But then that puts us in a tricky spot because, okay, how can I put a lot of content, good quality content? How can I put in the relevant things I need to put into here, the context and the content to make the viewer actually want to stick around? It's difficult.
In 60 seconds. Yeah.
In 60 seconds. And even if you do a 10-second, I'd say a 10-second clip has more chance of going viral or doing well than a 60-second clip because it would have higher completion. So the algorithm would just push it more and more and more. So people are more likely to complete that than a 60-second clip.
I think this is speaking from the podcast, we're kind of podcast first side. This is where I'll talk about YouTube specifically, is really tough because we very firmly believe that like this whole thing should be a podcast episode right now. And maybe it will be, right? Like we're going to record this and we'll clean it up and make it a podcast episode. Why not? Right? Because you can't, you may or may not consume video content on YouTube on the go while you're walking the dog or whatever, but like you would in a podcast, right? And so like from a YouTube algorithm perspective, we're in between these two worlds. We're saying like, we want to post long form content because it's interesting and you can have a lot of context around what you're saying and it's really valuable. And then you're saying, and right, the algorithm is minutes complete, percentage completed per video. Yeah. And we want to maximize that. And the chances of doing that in a 45-minute recording are really low. And so I think that's the quandary a lot of us are in with podcast content that we're capturing in video and want to publish to YouTube is, do we publish the whole thing? Do we only cut it up into shorter clips, even if you're talking like a 10-minute clip maybe, and publish those like Joe Rogan? Or do you just publish shorts? I don't have an answer, but I think that's the question that a lot of us are struggling with, right? Is like, you have the whole thing and it's 45 minutes maybe. Do you publish that? Do you publish, that broken up into 6 different sections, or do you publish the 60-second shorts? I don't know. Like, did you have something you suggest to folks specific for YouTube?
Specifically for YouTube, what I've seen working and what has actually worked for us is, and this actually might help in terms of repurposing as well, is what we'll do, okay, of course, the YouTube shorts, and then we'll also do the usual podcast, which we'll put on YouTube too, the video podcast or the video casts.
The whole thing.
And then the whole thing, we'll put the whole thing on there. And sometimes we'll do part 1 and part 2. If it goes over to like, let's say, for example, an hour 45 or 2 hours, we'll split that into a part 1, part 2. But what we'll do is we'll also do flashback clips. So we'll do the flashback clips of previous episodes. So what we'll do is we'll go back to season 1 and take like a clip from the first episode and then stick it, in a more recent time period, right? And say, okay, cool, we're going to upload this. This is flashback 1 from all the way back then. And then what that does is you can actually title it a bit differently to how it was titled initially. So you can actually bring a different audience in through that video. And then they can see that video and say, oh, I like this video. I want to go check it out. So then they'll start binge watching all of your content from back in the day. And then not only that as well, but you just have more content to put out there. And it could be that kind of shorter form content. So it could be, let's say, for example, the episode was 30 minutes. It could be like a 5 minute to 10 minute clip. And you just take that and you put it more, like upload it more recently. So that's one thing that we do. And we've seen a lot of attraction from that. And it's great because you could just basically just keep repurposing. And a lot of the time, people don't actually watch the whole video on YouTube. They don't take in the whole podcast on YouTube. Our retention is so much higher when it comes to audio than YouTube. So I would even say take the end of the podcast and use that as your flashback clip in the more recent uploads. That's what I'd say.
Okay. I like that. And we do a similar thing just on the podcasting side of things, right? Like we will re-air old episodes, maybe even from another podcast of ours. We have a small podcast network we call Castos Originals. And we have a couple podcasts in there. We'll be adding a few more this quarter. And the goal is, just like any network, is to cross promote, right, the episodes between the shows, right? And so we'll drop an episode from this show into this feed, but maybe it's an old episode, right? So an episode from podcast A that's a year old will drop into the feed of podcast B if we have like an off week or something. And it sounds like that's what you're talking about, but just shorter versions of stuff from your back library. Yeah, I like that.
I would say I would definitely recommend doing that as well. So getting the little flashbacks, or one of my fellow podcasters, she calls them, I think, her bites. So like the podcast name Bites, which is quite nice. And then because that's like a little teaser for the episode that has been like that previously uploaded. So I'll definitely recommend to do that as well.
That's awesome. All right. We have about 10 minutes left. I want to save a few minutes to have folks learn more about what y'all do. But first, let's leave people with 3 things that they can leave here and take action on. I'm going to put you on the spot. I have a couple myself if you don't have 3, but the goal here is like, I want folks to be able to leave and then create and publish content this week. So what are the 3 things that you would want to see people do?
Okay. Can we go back to back? Can you do one and then I do one?
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep. Okay. So my first one is just turn the microphone on and the camera and record for 10 minutes. Know that it will be edited. Know that what you're saying is not perfect. Take a lot of deep breaths, have a glass of water, and just think about capturing a minute of good content and then another minute of good content. And that, for me, that's the way you can build the blocks to record a lot of good stuff.
I'd say it's so cringy, but just be yourself. Authenticity sells. Authenticity really, really sells. Like, that is the reason a podcast is supposed to be you building a relationship with your audience. And the only way that you can build a relationship, a good relationship with someone, not a toxic one, is to be your authentic self, right? So I would say to do that when it comes to podcasting as well. Just be your full self. It's just you speaking anyway, or you speaking with a friend, you speaking with a colleague. Be your full self, and then people will take to it, and you'll get the right kind of audience to watch it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'll leave with something maybe more practical, and it is have a system to get what you recorded and the authentic content you just recorded. Have a system for getting that out the door, right? Whether it's Final Cut Pro or Premiere or hiring an agency like yours, or finding a person on Fiverr. Like, just have a way to schedule time in your calendar, because we're all busy, to record the content, and then have a way to get that out the door, whether it's a person on your team or hiring someone or whatever, to get that out the door. Because I think those two things, those bookends are the barriers a lot of times. I just make excuses to myself of why I can't publish stuff. Cool. Alexander asked, any automation or AI tools to speed up the short clip generation? Any value to Clubhouse social platform? I don't know of any, so I'll let you go with that, Jonathan.
In terms of the automation tools?
Yeah.
All I would say in terms of the automation tools, I guess you can use ChatGPT just to come up with so you can ask ChatGPT, okay, this is the topic that I'm going to be speaking on my podcast. What should I integrate into there, or what topic or subtopic should I integrate into there, which would work good as short form content? That's how I would say to use AI tools. But I feel like you're talking about actually creating the short form clips and editing them. There's not too much to my knowledge, but I would definitely say to, yeah, great question. I would definitely say to, for example, Veed. I know Veed is pretty good because it's an easier way to actually edit the short form clips than Final Cut or than Premiere Pro, for example.
Yeah.
And in terms of anybody to Clubhouse social platform, in terms of is there any value of that platform? That's actually where we started, the podcast Purpose Led. We started on Clubhouse. So we actually built a little community. I say that it was about 500 people on Clubhouse, and it was about personal development at a time where people weren't necessarily speaking about that. But there is definitely a use for it. The question is your audience on there? That's the main thing you need to think about. So I'd say go into Clubhouse. That actually leads me to my next takeaway as well, but we'll get there in a sec. Go into Clubhouse, type in whatever your niche is, whatever you're interested in, and whatever topics that you speak about. See if people are already speaking about it. See how big the platforms or see how big the rooms are. See if you can get involved in them. See the kind of conversations that they're hearing. And you can even double up. You can actually run a podcast, and then whenever you're recording a podcast, just have Clubhouse in the corner, so you can actually grow both simultaneously.
Yeah. Cool. Don't forget. I don't want you to forget your fourth point there, but I do want to address Alexander's question, so I understand what you're saying now. To my understanding, and talking with a lot of people in the software world, since that's the place we live, there is not a good AI tool for uploading an hour-long thing and it picking out the 10 best 60-second clips. This is evidently a really hard thing to do with terms of like sentiment analysis and stuff like that. So to my knowledge, no, there's not a good tool that does this at the time. I would say just in general, AI is very good at understanding content that you give it and summarizing it and making lists and things like that. So I'm sure that this will happen, but to my knowledge, and if we're wrong, please someone correct us in the chat. But to my knowledge, there's not a tool that does this automatically, but it sounds amazing. Yeah,
definitely. And I do remember, I was racking my brain. To remember it, but it's understanding your audience. If you understand your audience, the process will become a lot easier, a lot simpler, because you will understand what type of content to make. You will understand where to put that content. You will understand the type of words to use, the type of references to make as well, if you understand your audience. So that would be another one of my tips.
Awesome. Cool. Jonathan, let's wrap up. I would love to have you kind of share more about, like, I think the most helpful thing would be kind of like, who do you all typically work with? And like, what's an ideal, like when someone comes to you and says, oh, you're a perfect fit for what I want to do. What does that look like?
Okay. So in terms of who we work with startups and high level entrepreneurs. And I told you why I like startups as well. I just find them very interesting. I just like working with people who are interested and are adding value to their space, right? Same thing with high level entrepreneurs like coaches, consultants, just experts in their field who want to grow their personal branding and podcasting agency. And the kind of ideal client, I'd say, or even let's say, for example, an ideal startup, it would be someone who, actually no, an ideal client. It would be someone who just has a lot on their plate. Just, okay, I need to do this. I need to wear this hat. Someone like that. And they're, let's say, for example, giving this to their team, one of the members of their team, and one of the members of the team also has to wear this hat. So everyone's doing a lot. It's just, we are someone who can offset that. We can take that from you and then run with it and scale it up for you and automate it. That is basically the ideal type of scenario where we're the superheroes. Basically, we just come in, save the day when you've got a lot on your plate, essentially.
Awesome.
And you want growth simultaneously. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
But go on, sorry.
Yeah. And just a point of clarification for me, really, is do you all write the post too, or you just created the video assets?
So essentially, at this moment in time, we only create the video assets. But we will be installing that into the business where we actually put the post out there, write the post, all that kind of stuff. But right now, we just want to get very, very good, or proceed in getting good at what we're doing at this current moment in time, which is just automation.
Awesome. And I think arguably that's the hardest part. So I think it's very smart for that to be the thing for you to tackle. And I can speak for myself as, as someone who would be a customer maybe, and just the people that we work with, this is the hardest part, right? The hardest part is not creating the content for customers. It's extracting these short clips as interesting little bites, right, to put out on social. And I think writing the text that goes along with those posts for things like LinkedIn is also not hard. And maybe you would use something like ChatGPT for some of that stuff. I think it can be quite good at coming up with like ad headlines and things like that. So Alexander, maybe that's a place where you can use some tech to kind of add on to a service that provides clips for you. So
definitely.
Wonderful. You answered all of my questions. I feel like I'm ready to rock. I'm gonna go record a bunch of content, and we'll get more active. It's interesting. We have not been a brand that's been very active on social in the past, and I think this is a fair thing to say. It's like, to me, you mentioned like people, founders, and coaches and consultants that want to get out there, and I think this is really where it has to be. It has to be the person that's posting this. No one's going to go follow the Castos feed on Twitter, right? I mean, it's great, and we post there and all this kind of stuff, but like, whether they do or not, if someone would want to hear from me, right, and someone would want to hear from Jonathan as a person and a human being, and so I think that's where we all should think about growing our audience, and then leverage that enhanced audience into a business objective, right? But I think folks shouldn't think about, we're going to create all this content and we're going to post it to our company Twitter or TikTok account. Like it's you, and you are the asset to the company, whether you're a founder or not.
I would say to do both. I would say to post it on the personal page and post it on the company page as well.
Okay.
Or just have some sort of engagement there between the two.
Okay. Awesome. I learned so much. Jonathan, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Everyone on the call, thank you all very much. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions for Jonathan, where's the best place for folks to kind of check out you and what y'all do and learn more?
You can email me, you can LinkedIn me, Jonathan Reid on LinkedIn. If you just type in Jonathan Reid, re-identify, I'll pop up. And that's REID, Entify. REID, Entify, right? ENTIFY. So, look me up. You'll find me. And also reidentify.co, which is my website. So you can have a look there through the kind of stuff that we do, the kind of people that we work with, and just to get a little bit more information. That's REIDENTIFY.co. And that's where you find me. Awesome.
Jonathan, thanks so much. For everyone on the call today and everyone who's checking this out afterwards, thank you so much for joining us. Craig Hewitt, founder of Castos. If you're looking for podcast hosting and analytics, check us out. We also have a professional services arm, Castos Productions, that does literally everything from when we stop recording today until the episode goes live: audio, video, YouTube, shorts, show notes, publishing it to your platforms. If you are a busy professional and want to offload all of that back-end work, check us out. We'd love to chat. Castos.com, CASTOS.com. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining me today. This was absolutely wonderful. Everyone on the call and listening, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks.